We love being able to go to the different high school, colleges, middle schools to live broadcast sporting events around the area. Georgia Alabama Sports Live appreciates all the fan support, but without a presenting sponsor like Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC in Opelika, none of this would be possible. So we want to say thank you so much. Go to glennsmith.com. That is right, glennsmith.com. See all the inventory and see why people always say, get ready to smile. Thanks, everyone, and thank you to Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC for being our presenting sponsor.
What is up, everyone? Thrift Barringer here with Richard Holdridge. It's the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show, and we're rocking, we're rolling, and we got a special one here today. But first, let me go ahead and bring in my partner in crime and welcome him with the properness that he deserves. Richie Rich, what's up, man?
What is going on, Thrift? Glad to be back doing a Georgia Alabama Sports Live show. I'm ready to rock and roll.
I am too, man. And by the way, you can get score updates and any news, Georgia Alabama Sports Live, are local related on the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 12 o'clock. He dropped an episode today, dropped an episode yesterday, and of course, we'll drop one on Thursday. We have the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show live from Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC on Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Central Time. And then we got, of course, that will be like a review show in college football. Going to be a lot of fun. And then on Sunday, it is our Georgia Alabama Sports Live show, which we will preview the upcoming week and drop our ratings poll. Got some nice traction here this week as we continue to drop those, Richard. I like the top 10, but this week alone, as we got right now or just ended, Kendrick Hardaway volleyball. Yet tomorrow, we have two volleyball matches, one up in Harris County with Troup County Central, Phoenix City, and Harris County. Richard, you'll be at Glenwood, Northside, and Houston County. And then me and Chris Gates will be at Connect Stadium for Washington versus Hardaway football. And on Friday, we got high school game day fly from Memorial. And then we got the triple header. First, headlined by the Heritage Bowl. 7 o'clock kickoff. It is Carver and Spencer taking on each other, and one of the, if not the biggest rivalry in this area. Myself and DJ Jones will be on the call. Looking forward to that. We're going to have several key guests and interviews throughout the halftime show, and of course on high school game day. Richard, you will be across the river for the 8 o'clock kickoff. So I went out of order. First, this Heritage Bowl starts at 7. At 7:30, it's Harris County, Troup County, and this is a litmus test for both of them. Harris County wins this, you got to start putting them in the top 10, and they're going to move up dramatically in our rankings, because now I got to start thinking, could this team win a state championship this year? A lot of people around the state are starting to notice Harris County, and I'm wondering if they get a big win against Troup County, who is a great program in their own right. I think they're 3A this year, right? Since they were 4A last year, are they still 4A?
Yes, they are 3A along with LaGrange in the same region as Sandy Creek.
Oh, how about that? So that's going to be Friday at 7:30. Rick Beach will be on the call. And then at 8 o'clock, Glenwood plays its first game in the AHSAA. They're playing in the public school sector, and they take on Valley. Richard, you know all too well. And both these programs are scratching and eager to finally put on the helmets and in their own color jersey.
Yeah, I can't wait for that matchup. I think that it's going to be a fantastic game between Glenwood and Valley. Just two programs that have great fan bases. And I'd like to see how Glenwood responds going to play public schools. I think that it is just what the Glenwood fan base and the alumni has been waiting for. I mean, we get these dream matchups finally, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am too, Richard. So cannot wait for this Friday. It is the triple header of all triple headers. We got Glenwood Valley, we got Troup County, Harris County, and you got Carver Spencer. Only place live and local to watch all games full content is Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Well, today's a special show. Tonight is, it varies. I was going to drop the unsolicited hot take with Thrift Barringer, but that's going to start next week. So if you're ready for someone to spew off hot takes, you're ready for Richard to come in just spewing off Stephen A. Smith nonsense, this is the platform for you. It'll be every Wednesday on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. But I was like, let's wait. Let's let week 0 happen in college football, and let next week, when everyone's just so eager for college football season to start and it's Labor Day weekend, I was like, let's do it next Wednesday. So this Wednesday, I decided, you know what? There's something happened locally. As we had on Jonathan Hoppy, who was the sports director for WTVM. His last day is Friday, and him and Tony Reese, his partner, did a great job. Sports Overtime, anything WTVM related. Obviously, those two guys are just at the forefront, and I thoroughly enjoy partnering and working with them these last several seasons. Well, Jonathan got an opportunity to go to Birmingham. Going to do great things there. Still going to be familiar with people in this area. I'll see him at games, and he'll still keep up with all things Chattahoochee Valley. But someone needed to fill in that void, that role that Hoppy is leaving now. And his name is Tony Reese. And we're going to go ahead and bring him on. I think this is the second time we've had him on the live show, but it will be one of many throughout the year. It is the new sports director of WTVM. How does that sound? Tony
Fellas,
Reese.
I can't even begin to tell y'all, man. It's been a really rush of emotions, man. This is home for me. So this is actually my second time being here, too. And now, in the 5 years I've been in the business, man, to be here, first off, man, just thank you. Thankful to be here, but thankful for y'all allowing me to have this platform.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And I've learned this from DJ, Richard, and you know this too. No one tells their story better than themselves. And instead of asking you a million questions, Tony, I really want you, for everyone around here, I know a lot of people know who you are and know you're from this area, but just in case there's, members of our audience that don't know where Tony Reese came from to get to this opportunity, start from there all the way back to your high school days that led you to now being the sports director. Man, I can't believe I'm saying this for WTVM. I think that is so awesome, dude. Me and DJ were talking about it. We were crossing our fingers just like we did with Jack Patterson. And then when it finally went through, just awesome. But we'll get to that in a moment. Let's talk about your story. Start from the beginning. Lead us to where you're at now, man.
Man, we go all the way back to Smith Station High. For those that don't know, I'm an alum, class of 2015. I actually got to credit a lot of this to my mentor, Hunter Ames, man. He was actually my mentor / teacher that year. I had been with his program for a while, and he actually took my senior pictures. And we were riding along to the location, the Battle of the Net area, and I was going through college choices, and I was like, man, I'm a big Auburn guy at first. I thought I wanted to go there. And he starts telling me, well, he's like, some of those programs, you really can't touch cameras till you're about junior, senior. And then randomly, Troy came into the mix, and I was like, man, Troy University. I knew a lot of my friends and buddies were going down there, and I knew they had one of the best programs in the state, but I was like, I'd have scholarships. I didn't really know much about it, but that was the one school where I could go as a freshman and start touching the camera. So that kind of sparked the interest there. And then, I go on to graduate and I apply to Troy. At one point, I thought I wanted to go to Duke, man. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. So I was debating the pre-law. It was pre-law or doing what I loved. And I was like, man, I ain't really worried about the money. I'm going to go do what I love. So got into Troy. And, man, the rest was history. Went down there, graduated 2019. Ironically, I met my wife there at the time, my girlfriend and fiance, then the wife, whole situation. Then I came back here and interned. I could have went to SFA, TVY down in Dothan, but I was like, I want to come back home and intern. A lot of this credit, man, I got to give my granddad, Lord rest his soul, was the reason I'm here today. That man used to have WTV on 5 a.m., 6 a.m., noon, 6, 6:30, 7, 10, 11. That man never missed a show, man. So after a while, I was like, you know what? I used to joke all the time. I'm going to be on that TV one day, Pops. You're going to see. And sure enough, man, the opportunity was just too good to pass up. I came back as an intern from about January 19 till about May. Graduated. I was looking high, low, anywhere, everywhere, just to see if anybody would hire me. That's the worst part they don't tell you. Once you get this degree,
you don't know where you're going. Right.
You really don't, man. There was like a month where I was like, bro, I think I just did 4 years for nothing. I'm not about to get no job nowhere. And then it's funny because back then, news director Mark Rosen, I was an intern, of course. He was like, "Hey, I know you want to do sports, but we got a producer role open for you." Look, I was just ready to sign anything and everything on the table, man. So I went over there. I was like, all right, cool. I came in. I learned the ropes. I know you got to crawl before you can walk. So I was just like, why not, you know? So I came in, started as a producer, did my time there, learned anything I can. You know, at the time, Dave Flatter was there. Grew up watching him, man, working with, like, your heroes, your local legends. I was like, bro, it's surreal. Him, Barbara Gaucher, Jason Dennis, Derek Kincaid, you know, names around these parts that people have known for decades, years, really. And I was like, dang, it's kind of crazy to be here, man. So, you know, fast forward, I was here roughly till about October 2020, you know, COVID hit. So that was a big thing. I was about to get married. It's ironic because once Paul Stockman left, that's when they hired Jonathan. And ironically, man, I was trying to go for the same job. And it just didn't play out that way. You know, guys, time, and everything works out for a reason. So we was getting married. My wife had just accepted a job down in Panama City. I was like, well, I'm not going to do this long distance marriage thing off rip. So I went down there with her for about a year and a half. Went to go work at our sister station, WJSG. And from there, man, I kind of really got my feet wet, got to fill in an anchor at sports and became a reporter. So I kind of knew the ins and outs from behind the scenes. Now I'm on the scene. And then, you know, God's will, about a year and a half later, happened to just be scrolling one night, saw that WTVM, the sports reporter position that came open. I was like, well, that's ironic. I wasn't really planning on coming. I always said I wasn't gonna come back here until I was like 30-something. I'm only 27, so you know, you put two and two together, you're like, all right. I had to convince my wife to come back because at first I was like, you know what, man, I'll come home eventually. I'm not really ready to come back home. You know, I want to go off and explore a little bit. But God's timing, man. One thing about it, I got to give all glory to him. He always has a. They always say if you have plans, man, try to tell him. I guarantee he can laugh about it. So you know, the rest was history. Came back here, been back now since August 22, and here we are. You know, recently, as you mentioned, my business partner here, going on the greener pastures up in Birmingham. He'll be at BRC, and you know, I actually found out back in Dallas. So you know, that was kind of fun during the SEC media days.
Oh,
Found that part
wow.
out. So I was like, yeah, man, things move pretty fast there. It was like, oof, it'll go back to the city. You got to figure out a lot of things. And, you know, God's will, I was able to apply, and, you know, I was able to get in this position. So now here we are. Like I said, I believe I'm the first guy that looked like me to hold this spot. So, you know, it means a little bit more. But definitely, man, this is home for me, and I just want to do it justice, you know.
Well, Tony, now that you're sports director at WTVM, a lot of great things happening on the lineup for WTVM to include that the ABC is getting the SEC. And what did that mean to you to attend SEC Media Days in Dallas and knowing that the ABC affiliate is now going to be the premier site for the primetime SEC game Saturday night?
Richard, I can't even begin to describe. I used to watch a lot of our affiliates, you know, from other markets that were CBS markets, do the whole CBS and the SEC on CBS switch up. And I was like, man, I don't even know how y'all begin to do that because it just seems like it's such a convoluted, complicated thing, but it's also so like beautiful in its own right because now it's different. You know, of course, that means a lot from our sales department wise. You get a lot more revenue ads and things like that, and it allows you to have some of the best games now on your station. So all the same games where I was sitting there waiting to see like, oh man, when can we go on? Now waiting around a lot of those games. We got a lot of specials in store. I'm not gonna tell you everything just yet, but just know we got a lot going this year. And this Saturday is about to get real fun around here. Promise.
No doubt. No doubt about that, Tony. But I want to go back to a couple of things. For one, you didn't give up on your dream, even though, you know, sometimes it's not in the plan to get the job you wanted at that time. But that didn't mean you stopped. But you mentioned your granddad, and I think that's pretty cool. I think we got something in common in this aspect. My granddad, you know, Larry Bush, longtime coach around here for 30 years, just a legend in my mind. I don't know if everyone else does that, but
no, man, that's legendary.
Every time we go to eat somewhere, everybody knows who Coach Bush is. And he actually coached DJ back in the day and Del McGee. It was funny because at Del McGee's Hall of Fame speech, I was talking to him. He's like, he credits my granddad for a lot of things and his love for the game and how my granddad was. But my love for sports comes from my granddad. And you made mention about your granddad having an influence on you. And I think that's cool. And I wish more kids would understand that. I'm not saying they don't, but your relationship with not just your parents, but your grandparents, I mean, that, in my opinion, has been just as important as my parents because of their influence on what I had. So that's cool that you were able to have that relationship with your granddad. I know you said he passed away and is looking down on you. I know he's super proud, saying that's my grandson right there on WTVM. But that's a cool thing you just said, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate that, man.
Yeah. So, Tony, talking about the opportunity now, all right, and taking on that sports director. Why is this something that you wanted? Was this an end goal when you were back in college? Did you wanted to be the sports director? You wanted to be Dave Platt, or were you just okay being on TV? How did this did this just happen, or was this something that you were planning on all along?
When I first got back here, it's funny. We kind of talked about one day in the case of, if Jonathan ever leaves, would I be willing to step into this role? And you asked me this question 2 years ago after that first natty, boy, I was scared. Boy, I'd be shaking in my boots. I'm not going to lie to you. Because I was like, man, I see the ins and outs he has to go through, or at least I thought I did. And I was like, man, I don't know. Because, I'll be honest, I'm not the most time efficient or, things I do a little bit unorthodox. Y'all know me, so y'all know my demeanor and my personality. I'm not really always by the book and how I go about things, but I knew over time, learning under Jonathan, and man, I tell you now, that's a brilliant mind. That guy's definitely going places in life. Y'all have seen it for yourselves. That man taught me so much in his last 2 years, really. And now going into that 2-year process where I've been under him and I've kind of learned, and even watching Dave Platter from back in the day, I kind of learned gimmicks of the game, tricks of the game. I also got to credit my guy, Scott Rossman, the sports director down in Panama City Beach. He kind of taught me some trades as well. And Julia Daniels, who's the weekend sports anchor down there, reporter. So I've kind of learned a lot from individuals, as well as I talk about Paul Stockman, each of those kind of giving me game. And then for those that don't know, man, we have an awesome team here at WTVM. We talk about my guy, Jeremy Hayes, the guru.
Shout out Jay Hayes. He is the guru, man. How about the silent assassin and Aaron Lee? You got to mention him too now.
I promise you, I was getting there. Look, Aaron Lee, for those that don't, I call that man the wizard. He's the guru. That man makes me look 10 times better. That man, the vision he has, the drone work, everything he does, that relationship of him, Jeremy, and I can't forget my guy Rico Mitchell and my boy Danielle Perry, man. Look, those my big brothers. All of them are like brothers. We family around here, man. And then we talk about my sports contributors. I got to give a shout out to Mackenzie Collins and Steve Pineda and even my guy Josiah Berry. And, of course, my chief here, William McClain, man, for giving me the opportunity, just because there's so much people don't see behind the scenes. All these people are inner working. And, we talk about all these sports overtime games. We go out and shoot, man. I couldn't do it without this team. There's so many others across the board that I just truly have to be thankful for, man, because having a team around you like that, it makes the job easy. So I know coming into this position, as nervous as I want to be, I got a good support staff behind me that I know it's going to back me up and make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and helping me achieve what we want to achieve,
Well, Tony, WTVM has been a very strong support family for you, but you had an opportunity to represent WTVM as a part of Dancing with the Stars Columbus edition. Just briefly talk about that. What was that experience like?
That feels like so many years ago now, but it's so fun, man. My partner, Mandy Hood, really, she's the reason I didn't have 2 left feet out there. I tell everybody going into it, I was like, man, I'm not a dancer type. I'm finna go out here and make a fool of myself. She's United Cheerleading. We did a lot of sessions, gymnastics. So we were doing a lot of stuff over there, man. And by the end of the results, I was like, oh yes, it's good. But Mandy Hood, man, for those that don't know, she's a local legend around here as well in her field. And it really was a fun, exciting night. And I know it's for such a great cause. I love everything they have going over there with the Alzheimer's Association. And just, I know this year I'm actually on the panel. I'll be running, I think, social media as well this year. So definitely glad to still be sticking around and being able to contribute in any way I can.
Yeah, Tony. And you made mention about you being the first African-American sports director of WTVM. Now, I know we've had Jack Patterson, who was the second who DJ Jones was the first for any.
Right. No doubt. Set the tone.
And I want you to talk about Jack and DJ specifically, Tony, because both of them have been in your corner. Jack may be at the competing station, but always there lending a hand. I feel like he's nice to everybody. So I'll let you talk about your relationship with him and DJ and what they meant to you being in the similar role you're in now.
I got to give credit. Jack Patterson, just Monday, I actually made my post, and Jack was one of the first phone calls I got, man. I've always, with competition, but at the same time, He's one of my guys out here. He's another big brother I look up to. We kind of came out, and I've been watching his, similar paths, both being hometown guys, him being a Shaw guy. I'm a Smith Station guy. Ironically, the State Line Showdown, I've already been busting his chops about that one. Yeah, already been busting his chops about that one. But yeah, man, he's just kind of set the tone. You know what it means. DJ really set that foundation. I always give credit to DJ, man. He was one of the first interviews I had here as well. Just super friendly, giving me words of game. Being a local legend across all facets of the game, I'm always willing to learn things from him. He's always kind of my guy I go to anytime we're at these big events, more than anything. All the guys he brings in, always trying to make those connections any way I can. He's giving me that guidance, Isaiah Crowell, all those guys. He's helping navigate those interviews, things like that. So I always appreciate DJ and Miss Candy for what they do there. I know you know yourself, man. They're always at every function we're at. So it's just one big happy family whenever we can link up. But going back to Jack, man, Jack's always been that guy anytime, whether it be out there on the interviews, things like that. I went away for a little bit, so he's actually been around the area. Sometimes I know my connections, but sometimes he can help point out things or certain statistics that I might have overlooked sometimes, and I got to give credit there, man. The dude up there, hey, mentally, guy knows every sports knowledge you could think about. He's such a diehard fan and everything, all Georgia, everything. So, anytime I'm always like, I wonder what happened here. He's like, oh, man, I remember this game right here. It's almost like Dave Platter to the thing. He can go back and memorize certain things, and I'm like, oh, okay. I forgot about that one. But, yeah, that works. So, Jack's, man, a heck of a guy, like you said. He's super friendly, man. Nobody wouldn't harm or fly type of guy. No. I appreciate everything he does. From a competition, he keeps me on my toes. So I like that. Now coming in this position, I know we're one of the few, I want to say, markets in the entire country where you have this now, 2 minority guys leading programs.
It's unbelievable, man.
Hey,
That's
bro,
it's awesome,
historic,
man.
It's so awesome. Historic. And I'm really letting it sink in, like him calling me the other day, really talking about that. And then just thinking about it, I was like, man, I never really put two and two together that we're really building something here. So, we're both making history and allowing it to just be like a full-on mark here, man. And I just want to make sure that all the younger African-American guys here in our community in and around the Chattahoochee Valley are really able to see this and know that, hey, I can be in that same spot one day. I really look to that. I don't always say, like, I hope to lead by example. I just hope I can lead somebody with some type of knowledge or some nugget or just some type of representation, because I know how much it meant for me growing up to watch that. Like, Stuart Scott was one of my biggest role models I strive to be in life. So, if I could just touch a bit of his success, man, I think hopefully I can leave my mark in that same way.
Well, Tony, you're going from being the sports reporter on WTVM, where we see you maybe a couple of nights a week, to now being the guy that people in their living room are going to see your face and give the sports here in the Chattahoochee Valley. What are some of the most rewarding things that not only being in front of the camera, because obviously you have the personality for in front of the camera, but you're also a very hard worker. We always see you at sporting events and getting that footage. I mean, what are some of the things that get you prepared to build a product for the viewership at night so they could see you and deliver the sports to the community?
That's a great question, Richard. People don't understand, entirely sometimes just how much time is consuming and just trying to gather news. We do maybe 3-minute, 3:30, 4-minute segments, but like you're spending hours almost really just scouring the net. I'm always constantly on X, following all our local sports media, trying to find out, what's going on there, all our school social handles, checking to make sure that I'm not missing anything. And even then, we cover not only like Little League all the way up to the pros. So, the Falcons out have a lot of action going on this week. Braves are kind of hit or miss, but, they're starting to come back in the sync. College football officially starts. Well, it starts this week, but also it really starts for us next week. So a lot of things going into that. Our high school football now is sports overtime. That's ramping up. So we're starting to do all our sponsored segments there. Scholar Athlete has come back around. So we have all those highlighting kids all across our area that are not only excelling on the field or in the class, but also in the classroom. So, there's so many different segments there. I think, it's the biggest situation or switch I think I have to do now. I'll be the first to tell you, man, sometimes I'm here till 1, 2 a.m. just really trying to make sure web and everything is posted up. If I had a long day, trying to make sure I get all the criteria and all the content out there so everybody can indulge in it. But now I kind of have to be more hands off and just delegate that responsibility. It's going to take some really changing, getting used to, but I'm going to try to do my best. Like I said, I have a good team around me, so I know most of them are capable. Pretty much everybody's capable of doing what they need to do to help us succeed as a whole. But ultimately, man, I'm always psyching myself into it. Always my saying is, let's get into it. You'd be surprised, man. I go out in public and people, I didn't think people were gonna catch on to that one, but it's really like the family members, and now every time I hear somebody say it, that's why I kind of leaned into it so hard on the post, because everybody always says it. They're like, when you don't say it, I feel like that's not you up there. What you saying? What you doing? So I'm like, that's now I guess been my catch slogan or my catchphrase. I always kind of said I wanted to come in and have something that stuck. You know, Dave Platter had that. That's a look at sports. So I was like, let me see what I can do. Let me change it up. Let me add my own flair to it. So that's kind of where I'm at, man. And I'm just enjoying the ride right now, honestly.
Yeah, I definitely got to give a shout out to Dave. That's a look at sports. I'm Dave Platter.
I'm telling you,
when you heard that, you knew what was about to happen, didn't you, Tony?
You already knew. Man, that's what I said. The first time I meet him in person, I was like, "Yo, this is crazy! Like, I've been watching you for years. Now, like, I get to see this in person." Or like Sports Overtime, he was a real big guy when it came to his scripts. Right. I mean, this guy printing off the scripts, running them to him. So it's like it's kind of surreal, man. I would have never thought 5 years ago starting this field that I would be in his position type situation. But like I said, God has a purpose for us all, and I'm just I'm excited for what's in store and how I can ever expand this glorious station I work at.
Well, before we get into high school football and some college football, last question is about taking your previous role. Do you have anyone? I don't know. I don't want you to drop news if it ain't ready to be
gotta keep it to the cup. But yeah, man, we got some things in store. Stay tuned real soon. You'll be hearing about them.
Okay, I figured you're definitely gonna have someone definitely in that role. You gotta have two guys in the sports department, no doubt, man.
In the meantime, I got to give credit. My guy Ben Stanfield is going to come in and hold it down with me for a couple weeks. But other than that, we got some big things in store.
Yeah, Ben, I can't wait. And Ben's a great guy, and he loves sports, so that's a great fill-in. But let's move on. Let's talk some high school football, Tony. Last week was week 1 for all of Georgia. We had some teams like Carver, who me and Richard predict making it to a state championship this year. Northside, I think, is going to be one of the best teams in the state. Harris County went and beat Manchester. Y'all were there for that game. We were too. So Harris County Northside could be two teams in the top 10 of the entire state 4A when they face off each other here in a few weeks. Let's talk about going into this week, though, specifically. You got Alabama starting, and of course the Georgia teams are in week 2. Who are some of the teams in Tony Reese's mind? If I ask you, this team has a chance, not just contend within make the playoffs. I'm talking about continuing to win a championship. What would you think, Tony?
I gotta say, Central being former undefeated state champions, I definitely see them running back. They've returned a lot of their key guys. Every year it's between Central and Auburn. I mean, that we don't have to speak on it much. You already know what it is, especially when it comes to region championships and region play. Those two teams, you can guarantee 9 out of 10 will always be somewhere in the mix for a state title. So I think, Auburn has a lot of key guys too. So it's going to be interesting to see who really wants it more this season. But Coach Patrick Nix, I saw just today his son Bo Nix being already selected as the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. So I want to give a shout out to him there. But a lot of positives going on over there. I think the biggest switch up this year, you had Glenwood and Lee Scott now to the AHSAA ranks compared to the AISA. That's going to be interesting to see how they really phase out. I think Glenwood still has a lot in their tank. However, they did lose a lot of key guys as well. I think Lee Scott, that's definitely going to watch that transition. Is going to be pretty interesting to see. Valley, that's another team. They lost their big 5 there. We call them the big 5. You had Cam Dooley and Jay Harper, and as well as Brandon Thomas, Ian Krim Davis, some of their guys they got going there. So I'm going to be very intrigued to see what they can pull out this season. I think Beauregard has some sleepers up there. People forget about them from time to time, but I wouldn't. Those country schools, man, I'm telling you. A lot to look into.
On them.
Hey, I'm telling you. I think Russell County, man, I know last year they had a kind of hard year as well at Smith Station, but I think Russell County hopefully going to turn some heads this season. We've seen some of those games they played, although the results didn't show on the scoreboard. Those guys play with a lot of heart, man. I think they definitely, what Coach Dylan Griggs and his guys have going on over there, I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see. I think they're definitely going to give folks a lot of stuff to say about it, a lot of highlights I'm expecting out of them this season. And then, man, we just go through the ranks. Opelika, another school, they have a new coach there. Brian Moore, I believe. That's a lot going on over there as well. We talk about that transition from Eric Speakman now to him, how that's going to play out. I think, Opelika's had that 50-50 year since they've moved to 7A. They really haven't been as dominant as they were at 6A, but I think this could be the year that changes around in some capacity, man. There's so many great teams we have across both in and around the Chattahoochee Valley. As I always say, that you just never know what you're going to get, truthfully.
Tony, with the area that you cover in the Chattahoochee Valley, you go as far as Eufaula down in East Alabama, all the way to Sumter County, and then when
True.
you get to like Schley County, I mean, how cool is it to like go cover these small towns where the entire town shuts down and they're packing the stadium on a Friday night? A place like Schley County, a place like Manchester, where that stadium was packed with Harris County and Manchester fans. I mean, really, what is that experience like when you're going to cover these small teams?
Brothers, y'all ever seen Friday Night Lights?
Yes.
That's essentially the vibe
Yes.
we get every week, man. Especially these smaller towns. It's pretty much a closed shop. We went to go watch the guys play ball. It's always so fun to get out there, and I hate that I can't always stay the entire game because I love just seeing the atmosphere, all the fans that show up and show out, the plays, the last-minute comebacks. That's always the worst time when you go get all your highlights ahead of time, and then it turns out the other team comes back and does some type of miraculous comeback, and you don't have the highlights to go with it. I'm always super bummed out about that because you just never know, like, how did it happen? I always want to know what happened, what took place, how was the stadium rocking. I don't care what stadium you go to, the country it gets. It's such a passion, man, to watch these guys go out and lay it all out on the line. It's just words can't describe, man, watching these kids live out their dreams. You know, there's a lot of top recruits we have in our area as well. You go back to Schley County with Zayden Walker. You go over to Manchester with Justice Terry. You go right here to Central. They have, 3, 4, 5 guys already committed to D1 schools. But even the guys that are working to try to get those offers, man, everybody's playing with their heart on their sleeve. Everybody's playing diehard ball. And honestly, I'll say it, we have one of the best high school programs, college coverage-wise as well, guys that go to the college level. Just the pipeline we have here in East Alabama, West Georgia is definitely one for the ages, man. You go anywhere. And I've been down to Florida, right there in the Redneck Riviera, they like to call it, right in the Panama City Beach. They have some studs down there, man, but the studs that come from here, it's miraculous, man. And I grew up playing it myself. I'm what you call an ERW, eat, ride, and watch. I rolled left bits for a while, but, being around the atmosphere, just being in the fun game, man, even though I couldn't play it much, I love talking about sports.
Yeah, me too, man. And like you said, there's so many great teams happen in that state of Alabama and Georgia. Your Calvary, welcome in the GIAA. And then obviously the 7 of the 8 Muskogee County schools all facing off against each other. But this week specifically, a couple great things that are happening. You have the State Line Showdown that Jonathan Hoppy and Ben Sandville will be on the call for. I know we can preview that game first. And
yes,
then
sir.
we'll go to Friday, which has we're going to have a triple header, Tony. We're going to be doing Harris County, Troup County. That's a pretty big rivalry up north.
No doubt.
Carver Spencer, which is the rivalry in this area, and Glenwood welcomes Valley for the first time playing a public school in the AHSAA. I just think those are 3 huge games, probably one of the biggest weekends for football for sure. And then y'all started off with the State Line Showdown. I guess we'll go there. Shaw obviously still working on a few kinks and didn't have the greatest performance against Northside. Northside's a dominant powerhouse. Shaw still has everything in front of them. I want you to talk more about Smith Station because they're the little brother to Central. They don't get a lot of love, and you've been there, you've covered them, you went to school there. What's the vibe you're getting for Smith Station this year? Do you think that this could be the year Smith Station goes 500, competitive, maybe make a playoff run?
I think those guys are definitely considered the underdogs to a lot of people, and I think this year they're hoping to really put people on notice. Going back to the summertime, for those that didn't catch it, they had a Midnight Madness, which is basically their first summer workout, but they decided they want to do it at midnight into like the 6 a.m. hour. And I remember going out there roughly from about midnight to 3:30. Well, it started about 11 to 3:30, man, and those guys were fighting tooth and nail all the way up until that, literally when I left, almost 3:45, 4 o'clock in the morning. So you talk about that type of mentality early on, and from there to now, talking to Coach Brian Garrison, who goes into year 2, coming out of Slocum High School, man, he has a lot of improvements he's seen out of his guys. As far as size and shape, there's some pieces that maybe need some work there, but I definitely think those guys going into this matchup have a lot of confidence, a lot of swagger. There's a new culture over there. It's to be elite, they're calling it. And basically being elite means in and out of the classroom, being the best of your ability, not taking any days off. And I think Coach Garrison really has his guys meshing over there. I think there's a lot of progress that we're hoping to see this season. Last year you go 1-9. A lot of the seniors, a lot of guys coming back, that's their mentality. We don't want to go 1-9 again. I can understand that as you talk about being from my playing days. I think we went about 6-5 or 5-5, 7-5.
You were competitive, right?
Yeah, so, it's been a couple of years where, Smith Station has kind of been the butt of all jokes. But I think this year, man, these guys are really looking to change things around. We talk about going across town. Cross River, that is. Shaw, man, Coach Johnny Gardner, also a second-year coach. He comes from the Carver ranks, so he has a lot going on over there as well. Having that winning mentality, his guys also in the same boat. They have a new stud of a quarterback, I'm hearing. I saw the highlights we have. I'm hoping to really see that in person now. Guys are only a sophomore, so, I think there's a lot of room to grow there as well. A lot of those seniors, they have one guy who's been starting since he was a freshman on that line. I believe in Kimbrough, so I think there's a lot of big pieces there. They have a lot of swagger about them too. These guys are coming in. The big talk is, smaller Shaw, 2A coming in playing a big 7A school in Smith Station. That's always the biggest talk of, can we hold up our own against a cross-town, cross-rival like that, cross-state? I think it's going to be a show, man. I'm not really sure which way to lean. The bias in me is like, I got to go with my Smith Station Panthers, but at the same time, I just want to see a great football game.
Yeah, I do too, man. And let's go to Friday. Well, let's start at the Heritage Bowl, and we'll spend some time on this. Obviously, we know everything that happened last year, okay, and I think it took away from what was just the greatness of this game. Now, in terms of winning and losing, obviously, Carver has dominated Spencer, and Spencer has not won since 2015. Coincidentally, the coach for Spencer, the last time they beat Carver, was Pierre Coffey, who's now the head coach at Carver. What's your mindset? You've covered these. You've been there for the Heritage Bowl. It's unlike anything else around this area. It's like a classic, like the Moorhead, Tuskegee. It's like any of those, like Albany State, Fort Valley State. I put it up there with one of the top high school games, not just in our area, but in our state. What's your view and mindset on this year's matchup? As Spencer didn't play last week, Carver did win, and just the Heritage Bowl in general, how awesome of a coverage it is.
Man, I got to say, that was my first assignment, actually boots on the ground when I got here. I got to cover the first Heritage Bowl, my first Heritage Bowl in person like that. And, man, for those that don't know, the atmosphere, like you mentioned, it's almost like Tuskegee Morehouse. It's definitely like Fountain City Classic. The tailgaters come out, the alumni come out and just celebrate. And, as we mentioned last year with everything that went down, I think it's just really grateful that they were able to get it back into A.J. McClung this year. At first, it started off in Connect, but, the district and the city were able to come to terms and make sure all the renovations were done in time for it to go back to A.J. McClung. So I think that speaks volumes to just how monumental and a testament of a game this is to the city. So to have that now, I think we talk about two programs, which, both had pretty solid runs in the playoffs last year. I think there's a lot to prove, truthfully. I think Coach Kegler over at Spencer, he and his guys, he returns a good bit of his guys as well. He did lose in his quarterback as well as several other key pieces, but I think they're prepared to take on the challenge. And there's no defying it that Carver has been the gold standard, as you mentioned, here in the Muskogee County area for quite some time now. So I think Coach Coffey and his guys are always ready for the challenge, but they know there's a target on their back, and they have to take every game not lightly. So we talk about, I think this game is definitely going to be one for the ages. I think, this will set the tone early on. Spencer did actually, due to that forfeit from Dooley County, they are now both entered 1-0, so they already have wins on the season. So I think it'll be curious to really see who turns out, and I definitely think this game will help kind of rectify exactly how playoffs will shape up later on down the line.
Yeah, Tony, I'm actually excited about our next big matchup as we got Troup County and Harris County, which both got wins. Harris County ends up beating Manchester. Troup County goes on the road, takes on a 5A school in Villa Rica, and beats them 39-6. That was a statement win by Coach Tanner Glisson's team that I strongly believe if they had Teo Todd last year, they're winning the 4A state championship. Now they're in 3A. Teo Todd is now at Georgia Southern. You got Troup County and Harris County. Harris County has not beaten Troup since 2020. This is a rivalry game. What are you looking forward to about this game? It's the first home game at Danny Durham Field after going all the way to the Elite Eight last year. I mean, there's just a lot of buzz about Harris County, and they do have some key returning players coming back, but they also lost a lot of key players from last year's team.
Richard, we have to talk about, man, first off, credit to both those coaches over there, Coach Tommy Watson and Coach G, man. They have a lot going on over there, guys. Tanner G and his guys. Troup County is different, man. For those that haven't been up there, Harris County as well. This last season, Harris County shocked the world. Definitely shocked our area. Those guys came out to play, and every week it was just fascinating to see whether it was Randall Tree going up for some things. Matei Yeoman carrying that rock, man. It was such a fun. Levi Watson back at quarterback. There were so many fun games to watch from them last season. But then we can't not talk about Troup, man. Those guys, been stacked. Ever since I've been there, got back, just watching those guys go out and get it every week. Tail Tie definitely was a big loss for them last season. I definitely agree with those sentiments as well. I thought they were my favorite to go all the way. They had a lot of positivity there, but I think this year you talk about losing some of those pieces. That first week we were able to kind of see them going out of Villa Rica and getting that win. I think it's going to be a fascinating game. You know, although Harris County has the home field advantage, I think there's going to be it's going to be a high-scoring matchup. I think both teams are going to bring their A game. It's really going to come down to who has possession of the ball last, I feel like, truthfully, because both teams are definitely going to be bringing it. And although they lost several key pieces, I think it's going to be one for those that people are going to really want to look into.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And we're going to have it all on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. 7 o'clock, Heritage Bowl, 7:30, Harris County, Troup County, 8 o'clock, Glenwood Valley. And, of course, the State Line Showdown on WTVM is tomorrow, which is Smith Station and Shaw. All right, Tony, don't want to keep you too much longer, so we're going to go some college football and hit on some Falcons before we get you out of here. Let's start college football, and we're going to talk about the three teams that are part of Georgia Alabama Sports Live, which is Georgia, which is Alabama, and which is Auburn. But I'm also going to throw in there, not Georgia Tech. I'm sorry, Tech fans. Georgia State, because of Dell McGee. And by the way, they take on Georgia Tech. So let's start with Georgia State. All right. Obviously, they, remember upset Tennessee back in 2018. They were a pretty, competitive program in the Sun Belt under, I can't think of his name now. He was the offensive line coach of South Carolina, just went back to South Carolina, Sean Elliott, and he leaves. And now then our guy Del McGee takes over Georgia State. Give me your thoughts on them, Tony, and what you're thinking in year one, because from all the preseason magazines, man, it's not looking good. He's having to replace a lot of transfer portals. They're saying if he gets 3 wins, 4 wins, it's a successful year. I'm thinking higher than that. Maybe that's just me being biased because I love Del McGee. But what's your thoughts on Georgia State?
Man, we talk about a guy like Dale McGee. For those that have never met him before, that man is about his business. He carries room. His presence is pretty phenomenal, man. Just what he does. His scheme, his mentality for the game is really outstanding. I think this is definitely going to be a turnaround now. I got to be a little biased being a Detroit Trojan, but, I think Georgia State has a lot of big things in store this year. I think the Sun Belt is really up for the taking as well. A lot of new coaches around the entire conference. I think Dale McGee can really come in and make a splash. We talk about some of those non-conference games. I think if he can at least get 2, 3 of those, he's in a pretty good standing this year. It is year one, so I think he deserves a lot of grace as well. We know he's going to come in with a winning mentality. He might not get all the wins he wants in his first year, but I definitely think as he gets into the system and really gets his guys and recruits in, it's going to be a phenomenal thing he builds there at Georgia State.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And laying the foundation, I think that's the most important part. Let's not focus on wins and losses. And that's why, me and DJ were talking about this and several other people. It's like, don't focus on if they go 9-3 or 10-2 and win a conference championship in year one. What he's trying to build there long term is sustained success, making this a go-to hub for recruits. And obviously, it's going to take some time to build your foundation. I mean, Nick Saban went 6-6 in his first season. I mean, that happens. Allow these guys some grace period. So don't focus on the wins and the losses. Heck, Deion went 4-8 last year, and everybody was talking about him being coach of the year the first 3 weeks of the season. So I think Dale's going to have plenty of time, and I'm seeing big things for him. I am going to talk about the Auburn Tigers. We have on Mike G of the War Report. I know you know Mike G.
Yes, sir.
He's a good guy. He's a big contributor of Sports Vision's radio show. He thinks it would be an incredible year if Auburn somehow goes 8-4, 9-3. Same thing with Jonathan Bam Rivers, who played at Auburn during the hay period of Tommy Tuberville, who, by the way, is on WXTX, affiliate of WTVM, and he has a show Move the Chains every Saturday morning that you can go and check out. We love Bam Rivers, and I think he's going to be on the call for Davis Broadcasting radio version. We got the streaming person with me and DJ. I think the radio version, Bam Rivers is going to be doing that. So make sure to shout out Bam. I'll see him up there in the press box. But back to Auburn. I think 8-4 after year one going 6-6. You go 8-4, 2-game improvement. The schedule a little bit tougher. And the way that recruiting's going, you're going to be winning 10, 11 games and in the mix of winning conference championships before you know it. But I do think you need to get 8 wins, and I do think you need to beat an Oklahoma. You need to be competitive with Georgia and Alabama. You need to beat an LSU. You need to have some key wins that you can build off of. What's your notion on Auburn?
If we talk about that, man, I was at actually 3 of those games last season where literally Auburn had teams dead to rights. We go back to that Georgia week. Who can stop Brock Bowers when he's hot last minute? That game was almost an upset there against one of the top teams in the country. You go back to Hugh playing his old team in Ole Miss. That was almost an upset. And then, of course, as much as I hate to mention that 4th and 31 being there in the stadium for that one, you just kind of knew, Auburn's there. Auburn has a lot of key pieces, and they add one of our local guys who's a top 5 recruit all across in Cam Coleman, as well as that new Freeze 4 they're calling it with Malcolm Simmons and Bryce Kane and several of those other guys, Keith Lambert-Smith. And there's so many guys there. Justin Lewis, man, that whole team is just looking impressive. I like what I've seen a few times. I've been up there now to see some of their practices as well as talk with the team and talk with coach and talk with some of the players. They have a lot riding, man. I think in year 2 now for, Hugh Freeze, he has a lot to really prove. Now, post-Nick Saban era, him against Kalen DeBoer is going to be a fresh start for him. I feel like, Kalen DeBoer brings in a lot of championship mentality for Bama, but I think Hugh has them. He has the wins in his past teams and career. I think coming in, I think it's Auburn has a lot to prove this season. I feel like, truthfully, we talk about them going 6-6, really 6-7 the last 2 years. The best you can do is improve from that. At least 8 wins doesn't seem highly unlikable. You got to get through some of those teams. Oklahoma being the first-time opponent now, coming to your home. I think you kind of got to win that game. The Cal game was a little too close for comfort last year. Waiting to see how they really play that one out. And then you talk about the bad part is having Oklahoma and Georgia almost back-to-back. So that's one of those games that's going to really be tricky because you kind of play Georgia for their homecoming, which if I'm them, I'm taking that as a disrespect. But, we just have to wait to see how it plays out.
All right, Tony, let's talk about Auburn's in-state rival, Alabama. First-year coach Kalen DeBoer takes over for the longtime coach Nick Saban. There are some Bama fans that think that Kalen DeBoer is going to be fine because the foundation's already been laid and Alabama does have a lot of resources. But I feel that they did lose a lot of transfers like Caleb Downs and Isaiah Bond, but they still have Jalen Milroe. I do think that Kalen DeBoer's offense is going to be maybe a little bit more explosive. I just don't think the defense is going to be as disciplined as it was under Nick Saban. But what's just the vibe from Alabama fans going into the first year for Kalen DeBoer?
Rich, I think you got to watch around, man. If you've seen, the culture is just different up there nowadays. They're having DJs at practice. Everybody's playing a little bit more loose, having more fun. You talk about that foundation. You bring back an elite quarterback like Jalen Milroe now who knows he has the start and he's 100% believed in. Kalen DeBoer, those that forget, he was literally just in the national championship of Washington. The guy Michael Penix Jr. happened to be his quarterback he had there. So if he can get Jalen Milroe to the slightest bit of that, they're going to have a pretty successful season. They have receivers for days. Ryan Hollywood Williams, another top 5 prospect in the state of Alabama. He's going to do impressive things for him as well. Then they bring down Jeremy Bernard. They have a lot of guys there as well that he brought over from Washington with him, as well as bringing guys back like Caden Proctor and some of those big guys there, and Tyler Booker and a lot on the front line. I think they're going to be in a good position. I think they have a lot to prove in this first year. Just wondering, without Coach Saban, can they still be the dynamic team they have been? Because, of course, everybody knows, give or take, it's going to be Alabama, Georgia. It's kind of like Central Auburn. It's going to be Alabama, Georgia at the end of the season. Question is, can they go ahead and strike first and go ahead and get some of those wins under their belt? So when it comes time, there's no longer divisions in the SEC. It's just now 1 and 2. So depending on, can one of those teams be 1 or 2 and possibly face off yet again for another SEC championship?
Last school is Georgia. They're the favorite, and I think they're the best program in the entire country. Texas, they got to face off against them. They got to go to Alabama. They got to go to Ole Miss. They have the toughest schedule, I think, out of anyone by far. Got to take on Clemson in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. But if there's one team that can go through this gauntlet and only have 1 or 2 blemishes and still make the playoff, I think it's Georgia for sure.
We got to talk about how many wins the Dogs have had in the last 2-3 seasons. Keep in mind, they were just 1 win away from competing for their 3rd consecutive national championship. Those guys have a lot. We talk about one of our local guys there as well. It's funny we have local guys on all these teams. Mykel Williams, man, this is his year. A lot of people are projecting if he goes pro, he'll probably be a first-round pick. The guy has proven from his day one as a freshman that he can play. And you also have a Heisman runner and the quarterback Carson Beck. Him coming back another year was big for them. I think he has a lot of weapons there. You go in their defensive scheme with Malachi Starks and several other guys they have there. That team is pretty stacked across the board. There's no denying it. They bring in a guy like Trevor Etienne and Travis Etienne, his brother there. So there's a lot going in. those guys are going to be pretty stacked. Like you mentioned, we talk about that Texas. Now we know Steve Sarkisian and his guys are coming in. You add some key pieces there with Isaiah Bond and Amari Black as well, some key speed guys. But I think Georgia is the most well-polished team, and I definitely can see them arguably being the number one team by the end of the season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Last one, Falcons. So here's my thing. They come out and they say they don't want Michael Penix playing the last 2 preseason games. And I'm taking this one of 2 ways. Either they're saying that Penix is outplaying Kirk Cousins and they don't want to start ruffling feathers right now and look like, man, do we start him over giving Kirk Cousins all this guaranteed money? There's that. And then there's the aspect of maybe they just don't want him to get hurt. And maybe they want, with Kirk Cousins, they just want him to get acclimated more. What's your thought process on the Atlanta Falcons going? They get Judon, they get Simmons, they got an elite roster, and they're obviously thinking that they can win now, especially with the division being up for grabs. Do you think it's Cousins all year, or Penix going to be starting at some point?
We've got a running joke around here. I think it'll be like 50-50 snaps. I think Kirk will start off the season, but I can definitely see Penix taking it over. I think, like you were mentioning, you got to go back to that first pregame. They did lose some key guys early on. I think more so they're probably shutting him down just for injury, make sure he's not injury prone, allow him to maintain that healthiness into the first weeks of the season. I think it's not a bad thing, truthfully, because you still have Taylor Heineke in the backfield as well, some of those guys that can step into those roles temporarily. Now, I know they really haven't been winning many preseason games, but once again, it is just preseason. The wins really count when it comes into the final regular season. I think it's going to be a lot there. I think Kirk is playing healthy as well. You know, he's coming off a major injury. You gave him all the guaranteed money, so I think you really have to utilize him and see what he's worth in the first couple weeks. And as we've seen before, we've had that two quarterback system where you had Desmond Ridder last season as well, and some of the other guys coming in to see how they play out. I think it's going to be interesting. I always have the saying Falcons are going to Falcon when they do bad, but I think this year the Falcons, they add the defense, man. You talk about Matthew Judon, and they bring in Justin Simmons, and they already have Jesse Bates and AJ Terrell and Grady Jarrett. So they have a pretty stacked defense, man. I think they're going to actually surprise and put a lot of people on notice this year, and I don't see why not. They can't really run the NFC South. I mean, considering that the Bucs had a heck of a run, but they weren't the best overall score in overall wins and losses last season, I think they stand a pretty good chance this year.
His name is Tony Reese. He's the new sports director for WTVM. Richard, you had another question before we get out of here?
Just real quick, Tony, week 1, they take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their old offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith. What's that going to feel like at the Benz? And what's the warm welcome that Arthur Smith's going to get when he makes his return to Atlanta?
Man, I think you got to ask any Atlanta Falcons fan if they really like what Arthur Smith did. And it's pretty 50-50 for what I'm hearing. I think Raheem Morris brings a lot of swagger, a lot of culture there. You know, he was actually part of that 18 team that went all the way to the Super Bowl. I think this is definitely going to be a warm welcome. But you talk about two of the studs they have over there in quarterback in Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. So I think depending on how that plays out, it's going to be hopefully a high-scoring game. But I think that defense is really going to show up to play, and that's going to be a key factor in the game.
No doubt about it. He's the sports director, and we're so proud of him, and we're looking forward to talking with him throughout the year and coming up on our shows and coming to live shows when we, like last year when we did that at Happy Hour Bar and Grill.
Yeah, man.
Tony, we appreciate you, man. Congratulations once more. Looking forward to seeing you on a sideline near you. His name is Tony Reese. Appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you later.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
Tony.
Yes,
we're going to take a break, and we'll come back and wrap it up on the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show.
You're watching right now the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show that is presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. Get ready to smile. We'll be right back after this.
Truckloads of fresh inventory are rolling into Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika. Check out the powerful new Chevrolet Silverado 4-wheel drive crew cabs, discounted up to $13,750 off. Chevy Equinox with discounts up to $6,000 off. And listen to this, 2024 Chevy Blazer EV, as low as $295 a month. Brand new Chevy Blazer EV, 24 months lease, just $295 a month.
Get ready to smile.
Introducing Gatorade Water. Alkaline and electrolyte infused for great taste. Gatorade Water, always in motion.
Welcome back, everyone. Thrift, Barringer, Richard Holdridge. Thank you to Tony Reese for coming on and Like we said, we are brought to you by Pepsi. Every time we need a drink, Pepsi and Buffalo Rock is our go-to place. Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. We're going to be live on Saturday from the showroom at 2 p.m. Can't wait for that. And then, of course, Zaxby's for all your tailgating needs. Make sure to go to Zaxby's. Had a lot of fun here, Richard. Enjoyed it. Looking forward to high school game day, 5 o'clock from Memorial Stadium. And tomorrow we got high school volleyball and high school football. It's just busy, busy, busy time here on Georgia Alabama Sports Live.
I can't wait. Once again, we just continue having these shows and these coaches shows and live streaming volleyball, softball, and soon we're going to add flag football when their season starts, and then we're just going to continue grinding because that's what we love doing here on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And by the way, I do want to say, Thrift, I'm loving these new T-shirts. As you see, I'm rocking the Georgia Alabama Sports Live T-shirt. We do have some new swag, so come check us out at these games, and then we're representing Georgia Alabama Sports Live with some new swag.
Like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. Everyone else, have a great night. We got the Muskogee County Coaches Show coming up next. Coach Orpeza from Northside, Coach Pierre Coffey from Carver, Coach Kegler from Spencer, and potentially Coach Mayo from Kendrick on the Muskogee County Coach Show here on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for watching the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. You're ready to smile.